Wow, £55 million rejected by Wolves. Newcastle have placed a £55 million bid for striker Strand Larsen last night and has been rejected. Thoughts are that Newcastle will be back in for him again today and will pay as much as £60 million. More reports coming out to say that Wizard talks continue. We are still in for two strikers, and Alexander Isak has doubled down on his secret, it's not very secret, half of Newcastle knows about it, his secret meeting with the owners, and has said he does not want to return to Newcastle United. Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. You joined me fairly early this morning with a cup of tea in hand. You thought, you know what, I looked out the window, the sun was shining, it's a little bit windy, so hopefully the audio is okay, and my hair is a mess. But we have a cup of tea, we have our tune top on, and with just a few days left to go of the window, it's not over. It really isn't over. A few days ago, I could have possibly said, not looking great. We may well end up with just Isak. Newcastle are clearly trying to make sure that that is not what will happen in a few days' time, that Isak will be our only option. In fairness, it looks more and more likely to me that after the secret meeting the other day with Isak, that in fact the Newcastle owners have gone, right, he clearly doesn't want to be here, let's go out and make something happen this window. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, please be sure to do so. Drop a like on this video if you are enjoying the content. As I say, I'm up early this morning. It would not surprise me if I'm back later on today, because things are going to happen in the next few days, undoubtedly. I was going to say things are going to change. Nothing's a given that anything may or may not change in the next few days, but certainly the noises are coming out that Newcastle are trying to make sure that they have a striker in. You can go back to the start of the window and say that whether Isak was here or not, it's always been we need a second striker, we need another striker. Clearly, Strand Larsen is the man who's now top of the list, and lo and behold, he went and scored 2 late goals for West Ham last night in the Cup. So not only does that mean that he's cup tied, by the way, so if we do go and get him, he wouldn't be able to take us back to the Carabao Cup final this year. But Wolves go, just scored 2 goals. Should we stick an extra 10 million on him? But the reports are that that isn't stopping Newcastle and that we are going to be back in for him again today. It's got a fright then. Oh. It's got a fright then. I think that was like a dog. Some bloke waved and put his hand up, but sounded like a very, very high squeal. Anyway, hello to that man who just waved at me there. Hope you're enjoying your nice sunny drive around the Toon. I'm enjoying my nice sunny sit down. But Eddie Howe is probably sat in a dark room somewhere trying to get some of these deals done. As I mentioned already, Strand Larsen, a man who clears to be topping Newcastle's target right now, and I think I would say that, let's be honest, they paid 25 million for him last month because he had been on loan, so they've only actually just made it a permanent deal from Celta Vigo. I suppose this is what it is. This is the Premier League. You have one good season in the Premier League and suddenly your price has skyrocketed, and added to the fact that Newcastle are clearly in a situation where they don't have much bargaining power right now. We need to get a deal done. We need to have a striker available to play for us. Reports are that Alexander Isak has made it clear that he has no interest in representing us next season. And if that is the situation, even if he's still here, even if he's just sat at home playing on the Xbox, even if we're continuing to fine him double his wages every week and Newcastle are actually making a profit off Isak at this point, you know, I still can't believe that should he stay past the end of the window that he would go on that way. But it looks like we've had this meeting and that the owners have come out and have realised that we need to make something happen. Reports were that obviously on the other night when we lost against Liverpool, I never thought I'd see it, to be honest. I had people on my video saying that I'm negative. I like to try to think I'm one of the less negative people. I think in fairness, I was probably feeling slightly deflated after getting a goal conceded in the 110th minute. But I think overall it was a result aside, it was fairly positive. I mean, the fact that we have had such a frustrating and almost tormenting summer window, to see us play that way against Villa and against Liverpool, essentially two games that had we had a striker, I think we would have won. So I think tormenting is a fairly safe word to use there. Plus the injuries, plus Gordon getting banned. I think there's some just reason to be a bit negative over those things. But yes, I will agree that there was some serious positives to take out of that one. And I think the big positive is that, and I think that's probably what's pushing Newcastle and what's pushing the Newcastle owners. We've had a sit-down meeting with Isak. He said he doesn't want to be here. We've just seen our team play their absolute heart out against Liverpool, and I think essentially against most teams in the league other than Liverpool, with 10 men. You know, we would have very easily gone out to pick up a point or even pick up a win in that game. Imagine, you know, fair enough, Strand Larsen. Imagine if we had Strand Larsen that day, I think we probably would have won it. Does that equal paying £60 million for? I'm really not so sure, but as I've mentioned already, we're in a situation now with a Wizard and a Strand Larsen. Maybe we can actually really push on and achieve this summer. You just imagine what the team's doing right now in the first two tough opening games against Villa away and Liverpool at home. Imagine if we had any striker available. I mean, Will Asula, big up Asula. He comes on and scores the goal. You know, you could argue that maybe he deserves his chance to start against Leeds this weekend. Will he get it? I'm not so sure. But as I've mentioned already, it would seem that the Newcastle owners have gone in and spoke to Isak and have just not had the response that they maybe were hoping for. You know, they've come over maybe a little bit detached from the situation. Obviously, Big Yasser had been in Canada, had he? Canada or America, and he'd flown over. Jamie Rubin got involved. Let's have a little sit down, little cup of tea with Isak. Let's talk about it, son. Come on, you're gonna be all right. And Isak's sitting in the corner. He hasn't had a haircut or a shave in about 3 weeks because he's too scared to leave the house. And he's just gone, I'm not moving. I'm not leaving, or I am leaving. You know. And the owners have gone, right, clearly, and maybe they've had a word with Eddie Howe. And maybe Eddie Howe said, look, for me, this is just not the way to do it. So this constant talk of 50-50, 70-30, 80-20 as to what odds it is that Isak's going to stay or he's going to leave, well, it's looking more and more likely than ever for me that Isak will go. But first, Newcastle need to bring a striker in, and despite probably not wanting to have to pay 60 million for Strand Larsen, 50 million for Wizard, who has 1 year left on his deal, and it looks like Newcastle may well do it. I think the thing is, for me, if we won't know if it's a success. If we go and get these players, it won't be a success or a fail until the end of the summer. Because if we spend 60 million on Strand Larsen, but he scores 22 goals and takes Newcastle back to the Champions League, then it was a well-worthy investment. If we buy those two players and they don't work out or it doesn't work, then all of a sudden it wasn't. But I have to say that even without those two players, I still fancied our chances in the last couple of games. We looked like a team that could challenge for Champions League football, even without a striker. So I think it makes full sense and reason as to why Newcastle are pushing so hard to try and have one of those players in. Let me know your thoughts and comments on those two down below. As I mentioned, it would not surprise me if I'm back on later today finding out that Newcastle have placed a double bid for Wizard and Strand Larsen. Both teams have said they're not going anywhere, but every player has their price. And as I mentioned, Wolves have said that Strand Larsen's going nowhere at 50 million. We paid another 5, offered another 5, and they said no. Well, reports are that Newcastle think that 60 million would be enough to get the job done. It would be West Ham. It would be Wolves probably risking their Premier League status over the sale of this player. But to literally make, you know, triple your money off a player in a month. I mean, I can see why they're considering it. And I think it leaves the door open for Alexander Isak to walk out of it, to be honest. Constant reports coming out, and this could well be the reason why I'm back on later, constant reports coming out to say that Liverpool are readying their next bid of what's thought to be 30 million plus 10, basically getting close to around 140 million for Alexander Isak. And I have to say, even without signing a striker, I would consider letting him go because I've just totally fed up with the whole thing. And it seems like the owners are as well, and that's why we're pushing to try and go and find a striker to allow the move for Isak out of the club. Thoughts and comments on what has been a pretty wild couple of days after what had seemed to have pretty much kind of cooled down. Oh, it looks like we're going to get no one. It looks like Isak's going to be the man who's going to have to just come back in and force them to integrate. But it looks like that after the meeting with the owners and opportunities available for Larsen and Wizza, that Newcastle are making a pretty big move to try and get Isak out and bring 2 new strikers in, or one of them at least. Thanks for watching, guys. Thoughts? Or do you think that literally Wolves will say no to 60? Brentford won't let Wizza go, and trying to get this done in 3 days is just not a possibility, because I fully see that as an option as well. Right, I'm going to go finish my cup of tea, edit this one up, and get cracking with my day. And I may well see you later. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.